Got my license. First house I showed that first week I sold 47 houses that year. I quit college my senior year happily when I calculated that I was actually going to make more than my college professor the next year. And so that's how it started. And then it went from me being on a team as a buyer's agent to having my own team to then having my own brokerage. And so it completely accidental. It was all God's plan, not mine.
Welcome, everyone, to Realizations. This is the podcast where we talk about literally everything real estate oriented. And for those of you who don't know, the reason behind the podcast is I got really pissed off when the NAR DOJ lawsuits were occurring and the commission lawsuits were occurring, because I felt like we were all being disrespected rather profoundly for a profession that actually changes lives and is the responsible party behind a large part of the economy in the United States. And I have a feeling that people don't understand what realtors really do. So rather than being angry for years and years, I decided to create this podcast so I could educate the American people on the incredible numbers of lives that we touch, the different kinds of vendors that we deal with, how the money generated by real estate funds and powers cities all over the United States, and why it is that affordable housing is one of the crises that our nation is really dealing with at the moment. So I have an incredible guest on today, Bethany Brokaw. Thank you so much for being with us from Southeastern Michigan.
Yes.
She is an incredible entrepreneur. She has two of her own brokerages. I'm very impressed that someone so young could have created that for herself out of whole cloth. And I want to hear all about it today. So welcome to the show.
My pleasure. I am thrilled to be here today.
So Bethany, tell me a little bit about how you got into real estate. What motivated you to become a realtor, and what motivated you also to become the incredible speaker and motivational speaker that you are today?
Well, what's funny is it was actually never my plan. I'm completely accidental. So I started out, the thing that got me into real estate was that I became pregnant and unwed at age 24. And I knew that I would not marry that person. And oh no, now I have a baby. A gentleman I went to high school with owned a real estate office and kept telling me, "You can come work with me. You can come work with me anytime you want." And I said, "Well, can I bring?" He'd tell me that for years. I never took him seriously. Now I'm 24, so I call him up and said, "Can I bring my baby to the office?" He said, "Yes." And that's what started it. So I actually started out as an assistant to an assistant. Then I became an executive assistant, an office manager, a recruiter, a lead trainer. During this time, I was actually putting myself through college because at the time I thought, I better get a responsible job. I'm raising someone by myself. I added on a second daughter 6 years later. So at this point, I'm 100% financially and physically responsible for these two little girls. They did not have fathers. They had what I call biological sperm donors that were not a part of their life or anything like that. And so here I am potty training both my daughters. One was potty trained in downtown Flint. The other was potty trained in Davison in real estate offices. I got to the point of my senior year in college at the University of Michigan Flint. I had changed my major from pre-law to secondary education Spanish just to have a job with good hours for the children and good benefits. And my boss said to me, "You really should get your license." And I thought, I don't want a sales career. That's not who I am. I help people. I need something that's constant. And my very smart best friend Tanya said, "If you just sell one extra house, Beth, that's extra money for you and the babies." And at this point, I'd been driving the worst car in the parking lot at every job I had for about 6.5 years straight. I thought, she's right. Got my license. First house I showed that first week I sold 47 houses that year. I quit college my senior year happily when I calculated that I was actually going to make more than my college professor the next year. And so that's how it started. And then it went from me being on a team as a buyer's agent to having my own team to then having my own brokerage. And so it completely accidental. It was all God's plan, not mine. And he knew way before because everything I'd been trained in up to that point made it where I was equipped and then some. However, until I was able to actually be with the clients, I didn't realize how much I get to help people. And so every day, I don't even think of myself as a salesperson. I think I get to help people. I get to walk them through some of the most stressful times in their life and make a difference in their life. And so it's a very rewarding career, one unlike anything I expected, in the twofold of as hard as you work, you can actually get it back because you're working for yourself. And I'm changing people's lives. I'm helping people. And so it was the best surprise of my life was real estate. And it's completely changed my life.
Wow. So how many years have you been practicing real estate at this point?
So I've actually been in real estate now. It's 22 years this year. However, I did not actually get licensed till 2011, but I was in it for those 6 to 7 years prior.
Right. Well, doing all those other jobs, which just basically set you up to really understand real estate, understand how the paperwork works, because for people out there who are listening, you have no idea how many inches of paperwork, although it's all digital now, we are always doing. It's like writing the biggest term paper of your life, every single transaction we have. So, yeah, and it was interesting when I was hearing you speak about that, it reminded me about what women do. Women are caretakers. Women are constantly put in situations where we're the ones who are holding everything together, whether it's financially, whether it's just emotionally, whether it's physically. There you were taking care of two little girls and getting your education and sacrificing a lot. Like you went into a subject that you didn't necessarily love because you thought it would be a way to get a good job that would support those two girls. And it took you sort of accidentally finding real estate to find something that you truly loved that could also support those two girls. I just think about it all the time, how much women sacrifice in order to keep this country going, to be frank. We're over
Mhm.
50% of the population at this point, and our rights are being eroded every single day. And yet, people like you and me, we are out there at the front lines, being entrepreneurs, being successful, helping people. I figured it out once that the work that I do supports about 13 separate families every year. And it's not just the people that work around you as realtors, it's also the painters, the floor guys, the gardeners, the carpenters, the contractors, the person who sells the materials for all of those things. It's all of those things become an important part of the fabric of the society that we live within. And being a huge producer. I mean, my God, 47 transactions your first year in real estate. That
Mhm.
is wacky. That is crazy. I mean, I do that myself in California here, but I had to build up to that at a certain point. To do that your first year, when in a business, by the way, where most realtors will usually make one sale in a year. Okay. There were in 2024, 71% of realtors in this country made no money. Okay. So
Just mind blowing to me. Why even pay
yeah.
the dues at that point?
Well, exactly. And that's the other thing people don't understand what it's an expensive business that we are involved in. Every single thing we do has dues or money taken out of it in some way, shape, or form. When you are running a brokerage, you're the one who's paying for the E&O insurance. You're the one who's paying for any sort of a brick and mortar that you're dealing with. You're dealing with the insurance for all those people in your brick and mortar. You're also dealing with accountants and bookkeepers and support staff, etc. So it's a huge business that employs a lot of people who
Mhm.
wouldn't otherwise put food on their table. So real estate's a very important engine of society at this point in time. So when you are speaking motivationally, what do you talk about? How do you do that? Where do you get in front of people? How does it work?
Well, I've been blessed to be all over the nation. I was in California last month, two different places. I was Oceanside and Santa Cruz, and it was quite special. I've also been in Florida, DC, Chicago, Texas, Ohio, Wisconsin, Michigan. I joined the Women's Council of Realtors years ago, and that's what originally started that. I'm a past state president, and I've been in their National Leadership Institute, and I've been doing national speaking for them since 2020. It was someone else tapped me and said, Beth, you're just too good. You got to start doing some more speaking. However, it's real life things that I have done. So I teach a lot of listings and listing domination classes. I changed my career because of the babies. One year I did 98 transactions. All of them were buyers, but one.
Oh my
I had
God.
an assistant, but that was just me. I lived in the car. My
Oh,
kids were in
yes,
the
you did.
car. I was exhausted. And now, mind you, I had some great motivating factors, just not being
Yeah.
in poverty anymore. Like it was so exciting to be able to afford to buy anything and not have to always go to the thrift store, which I still go to this day. Not against thrift stores, but it's just I had to change my business. And so going from buyers, I said I got to change this, and now I'm 85% listings, and I carry between 15 to 47 listings at all times. So I teach people how to change their business into a listings. I'm also really into working smarter, not harder. I had to do that with the kids, and like you said, with the sacrifice, when I put them to bed every night, I would stay up on my computer till as long as I could, which was usually midnight, and I would build systems, and I would write offer acceptance letters, and I would do this and I would do this. And, I kept setting myself up for high production, even though I wasn't there yet, because I had to
Mhm.
constantly prepare and save time because I had children. And so there was so much behind the scenes. So I teach people a lot of that, like easy efficiency, listings. I do have my personal story, which is called Grit, which is one of the keynotes. And then I also speak on open houses and imposter syndrome, which is very fierce with us females,
Oh
especially.
yeah. Oh yeah.
And I every year or so I'll revive, I'll take out some topics, maybe add one or two. I promise you 100% of anything I talk about though is very personal to me, on my heart. I always say my speaking these days is my soul work. Anytime I can help an agent make their life a little easier, or let them know you can do this, or don't give up yet, or any of that, it's so worth it, because this is a really hard industry, and we know that. And it's sometimes we just need that person to tell us, like, don't give up yet, or you can do this, or our
Right.
worst enemies are our own heads, and to
Oh,
get out of our own head.
absolutely, absolutely. I think that, imposter syndrome is a real problem in any sort of a job, but particularly in one where you're constantly meeting people you don't know, where you're having to compete for listings or for buyer business at this point in time, and where there's a lot of legislation that goes on where they've never bothered to consult with a realtor at all and putting
Mhm.
that legislation together. And consequently, we then have to deal with the aftermath of people putting together stupid legislation that doesn't actually work in the real world. So we get put into situations where we feel like, am I enough? Am I doing a good job? Am I capable of this? What is my worth in this situation? And I don't know about you, but I suffered with a sense of unworthiness for a really, really long time. Fortunately, getting really old now, but I'm 69, I feel kind of like I might actually know what I'm doing. And I also don't really give a crap about what other people think of me, to be perfectly frank with you. And I think that is the biggest benefit of all of older age, is that you get to a point where you're like, I'm not going to please everybody, and it doesn't matter. You can't really change people. You can offer what you can, and then they're going to do what they're going to do. And sometimes they hear you, and sometimes they don't. And if they don't hear you, it's not your fault. And also, I've learned how to fire people over time. If I am dealing with a client and it turns out that they're batshit crazy, I will figure out a way to get rid of them out of my life, because it's not worth it to have toxicity anywhere near you. It really isn't.
Mhm.
When you're baby in the business, you'll take on anything and try to make everything work. And sometimes it's not worth it, because the cost of the time that you spend with that person, you could be dealing with 3 or 4 other clients and making actual money, as opposed to, once I had a client whose last name was Lifer, and he would come to the office, and my colleagues would laugh, because they'd be like, your lifer client's here, because they'd literally been seeing him come in the office for like 2 or 3 years. And what he wanted was so specific and specialized that it was going to be almost impossible. And it was almost like it was a game for him to get what he wanted. I finally got it for him. He led drumming circles, and he needed to have enough land that he could have these drumming circles and not get in trouble with the community for making so much noise. But also, he wanted a single level house with a pool in the Berkeley Hills.
Ooh.
So it was like this impossible task. And at a certain point, it became almost a challenge for me as well. But if I had the young me to do that over again, I would not spend the time that I did, because when you work with a buyer, you're in that car for hours and hours. I don't even know how you did 98 buyers, because they're all like at least 30 hours in a car. If you add all that time up, Uh,
Yeah, I the most showings I did in a day were actually 32 showings. I started at 8 a.m. I did not get home till 9:30 or 10, and I believe I had 6 or 7 sets of clients that day. I've never topped it, and I never want to again. So
Well, that's very cool. Now, what are your average price points in Michigan?
where we're at, our board's average sales price is right around 250,000, which I know is shocking
Yeah.
compared to California. My average sales price is around 360,000. So I'm
Okay.
above average as far as
Hmm.
that. And that's part of the reason too, we need to do more transactions in
Oh,
order to
yeah.
support more people. And, my long-term goals are to have a single parent nonprofit one day and such. And so it would be very difficult in Michigan to sell 10 homes for the year and earn an income that's not, it would end up being poverty level or below.
So, do your daughters still live with you? Or I guess the 15-year-old must, but does the other one live with you as well?
Yes, the 21-year-old does still live with me. She has been pre-approved for a mortgage since the age of 19. However, mommy has told her, just keep saving your money right now. We can get you something much nicer with a bigger down payment. So
When
that's,
I
but
first,
otherwise she would be out right now if I was encouraging her more so. I'm telling her, save
yeah.
a little bit more money,
Oh yeah,
and
absolutely.
then
There
we'll
was
go
a
get it.
there was an agent in my first office. She was incredible. I'm spacing out on her last name, but her first name was Natalia. And she, instead of buying herself a house as her first purchase, she bought a fourplex.
So smart.
And she lived at home and she rented out all of the units. And that was the start of an incredible real estate portfolio that she has. I don't know whether she got married and I'm sure she's living with her husband in a house at this point, but she lived with her parents for a very long time. I mean, until she was like 30 or something. So
Wow.
yeah.
But how smart is that though?
Well,
What a great
and
way to build.
in yeah, and we're in an industry where we get a chance to see things that are coming on the market quickly, so it's a worthwhile thing to think about building up that real estate portfolio as a woman in the
Right.
world because creates passive income. And one of the problems we have as realtors is we're on this treadmill where you're only as good as your last sale, and if you're not saving enough money, you're just on a treadmill where every month you're running, 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 running. So if you can create a way to have passive income, it will protect you in downtimes. Yeah,
Yeah.
we all learned the hard way from economic downturns. You know, how I don't know about you, but my first economic downturn, I got caught with my pants down. I was not prepared because money had just been coming in, and all of a sudden, money wasn't coming in.
Right.
And you have to learn how to save. Now I have an entire financial team that I pay a lot of money for, and they do an incredible job. But it took a long time before I figured that out. It took me going through two economic downturns before I was like, oh, this blows. I need to be better at this. Getting a bookkeeper, figuring out what deductions you can take, making sure you actually put money away for taxes, all of that stuff.
Yeah, no, you're completely right. I got rid of the scarcity mindset and got into the growth mindset a few years ago. So, like you were saying, I have an Airbnb in Florida, so that's some passive income. And then it will be open this year, a future assisted living home for passive
Oh,
income. And then I
very cool.
actually own both my office buildings and I rent out a little bit of one of them. So I'm not kidding when I say I'm the American dream because I own five
You,
properties now as a
yeah,
female. And that was thanks to real estate and observing, like you said, thinking I can't keep working 85-hour weeks. There has to be a better way. And
exactly.
there's not, I don't know how it is in your area, but it's very rare you see female investors anyway in Michigan, heavy on male investors, not too
Absolutely.
many female investors.
It's a
However,
boys'
I know
club.
that we're very smart and very equipped, and we need to stop being afraid to do things.
I think that really women suppress themselves in this culture. I think that we are our own worst enemy. If we would just
Yes,
take our power back and realize that we're just as capable as anybody else of doing anything with our own two hands, we would be so much better off. I see women be misogynistic all the time. And it's terrifying to me because how can you hate who you are? How can you not appreciate what you're capable of? I think when you're in that position, you've absorbed a lot of the misogyny of the world and taken it on as your own ethos, and it's just wrong. Um,
right. I'll
so,
never forget. I read once that us as women, say we're applying for a job, we will not apply unless we're 100% ready or qualified,
Mhm.
whereas men will apply when they feel 40%. And so ever since I read that years ago, that's what I use for anything I do. I always think, you know what, I'm smarter than these people. I'm way more than 40% qualified. Even if I'm not 100, I'm going to do it. You know,
Right.
like you said, we tend to be our own worst enemy. And I'm definitely done doing that. Like you said earlier, I'm at the point in my life, I hate to say it, you can't please everyone. I don't care what anyone else thinks of me. I know who I am, and the people that know me know who I am too. And I'll never change that. And I know I'm a good person. And a lot of times when people have the problem, it's because that's more a reflection upon them than it's
Absolutely.
yourself or myself.
Absolutely. Have you ever read a book called The Four Agreements?
I don't think so. I mean,
It's
it's possible because I've read thousands and I'm not going to lie, I forget sometimes. I have got
Yeah.
books before. You probably have too, where I've realized 20 pages in, oh, I read this once a long time ago.
I'm like that with mystery novels. I'll get
Yes.
about three-quarters of the way through and I'll be like, oh crap, I know who did it. But
Yep.
the Four Agreements is I forgot the name of the author, but it's a really good book. And one of the credos is be impeccable with your word. But another is to realize that when somebody's coming at you with their toxicity, it's not you, it's theirs. And that for whatever reason, you're supplying a mirror to them for them to bring that out in them. And it's an interesting thing to think about that you, as long as you live within your truth, you're going to be okay.
And I always believe that time will tell. So allow other people to say what they want, but I'm not going to change. And eventually time will tell the story, which is the truth, which is, and just what you said, I don't feed into it either. There was a little situation with something and someone said something to me and I just started giggling. I said, I don't have a problem with that person. I said, no, they might have a problem with me, but I don't have a problem with them. I'm just like, have a
Exactly.
great day. I'm not going to allow
Exactly.
anyone to rent my headspace for negativity or even to wish any type of ill will upon anyone. That is not who I am at all. Maybe 20 some years ago when I wasn't as intelligent, evolved, as well adjusted as I am now, I might have thought that, but certainly
Right.
not now.
I mean, I don't know who said it, but be the change you want to see in the world.
Yes.
So
Yep.
that's what I'm trying to do. You know, I went back 2 years ago. I'm in the middle of my PhD program. I'm doing a PhD in transformative studies at the California Institute of Integral Studies. And my focus is on women, ageism, and theater because I'm a theater practitioner when I'm not doing real estate. And I've built my life around to the point where I can do that.
Right.
You know, I'm still an 80-hour a week realtor, but I used to be a 90-hour a week realtor.
Hey, 10 hours less is still good.
But you just seem like a great person. I'm so glad to be meeting you. And if somebody wants to get a hold of you and talk to you about real estate or real estate investing as a woman or having you come and speak as a public speaker, how do they do that?
Yeah, they just went on my website. That'd be great. It's bethanybrokaw.com. That can take you to my real estate website. We have a commercial and a residential brokerage, all my speaking topics. It'll take you to all my socials and all that fun stuff. I would definitely love to connect with anyone anytime about anything.
Very cool. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on the show. And I'd love to have you back sometime. You're just a breath of fresh air. Thank you. Thank
Oh,
you.
thank you, Andrea.
If you loved hearing from these incredible voices shaping real estate, you'll want to catch what's next. Click the video on screen to keep discovering more inspiring stories.